Good evening, folks. The time is now 7:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be saying something that I never thought I'd hear myself say, or maybe even the older version of me or whatever never thought. I'm going to say something that I've never thought I've heard myself say. And what I'm going to say is this. America is not a Christian nation. Yes, I said it. America is not a Christian nation. And we're going to discuss this. So let's talk about it. Hey there, folks. My name is Javier Lopez here, Javier Blog 208 on YouTube, coming to you live. I hope everybody's having a fantastic night tonight. We're going to be talking tonight about the subject of a Christian nation, First of all, at the end of the day, despite the fact that we may have been founded in this nation by, so-called, if you will, Christians, the reality is, the dark reality is that, a lot of the founders of this nation were actually Freemasons. But aside from that, we were initially founded, as we know, on the idea of religious freedom and religious liberty, because we wanted to break away from the King of England way back, if you know your Revolutionary War history. So we wanted to break away from the King of England, and we wanted to have religious freedom here. Now, I'm going to first of all express some truths here. First of all, the first truth is that, having religious freedom is, at the end of the day, it's the freedom to practice any religion in this country. We happen to be a nation where the majority holds the Christian faith. It doesn't mean that Christianity is the fundamentalist religion of this nation, but we happen to be a nation where the majority of people hold the Christian faith. And by the Christian faith, I mean the faith that Jesus Christ came in the flesh and died for all the sins of the world. Now, we want to believe that, and we do believe that. I believe that, and I believe that the majority of people in this country believe that, whether they're evangelical or non-denominational or Catholic or Mormon, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a dominant belief in this country that Jesus Christ died for our sins. So therefore, in quote unquote, we are a Christian majority nation. This being said, we were not founded on being a Christian nationalist nation, so to speak. We were not founded on being a nation where Christianity is the religion, the national religion. We were never founded on that. We were founded on a secular constitution. And yes, I'm preaching to you guys about secular constitution. At the same time, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into this whole idea of Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is the idea to make, quote unquote, Christianity, and by Christianity, I mean the Republican, hard right, conservative, hard right Republican version of Christianity as the national religion of this nation. Now, the hard truth that many on the right don't want to hear, and many Christian nationalists don't want to hear, is that Christian nationalism is not Christianity. Christian nationalism is as far from Christianity as Christianity could get. What do I mean by that? I mean the worship of the U.S. flag, the dominance of America first, America only, patriotism, kicking out undocumented, kicking out people who are different, kicking out Muslims, etc., 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 is not Christianity. Kicking out people who came into this country and who have lived in this country for decades and who have lived here for a long time and who have built a life, and now we're saying we're going to deport them all. That's not Christianity. Claiming that, white people are being replaced by people of different ethnicities and skin colors and religions, etc., etc. That's not Christianity. Christianity is not about rejecting people. Christianity is not about kicking out the migrant, abusing the migrant, kicking out Muslims, attacking people who hold different faiths, hold different beliefs, or who come from different cultures. Christianity is about welcoming people. Christianity is about welcoming all people, regardless of whether they hold our faith or not. So the first step in being a Christian nation is that we need to be a welcoming nation. That doesn't mean to say people can come in illegally or whatever. That means to say that we need to reform our immigration system to make it easier for people to come here, to make it easier for this to be that melting pot of the world that we were meant meant to be. A Christian nation should be a nation that welcomes people, whether we agree with them or not. That includes Muslims, that includes Jewish people, that includes Somalians, that includes Haitians, that includes, Mexican immigrants or Latino immigrants, etc., etc., etc. Because at the end of the day, they are all children of God. And a Christian nation, a true Christian nation, will recognize that these people are all children of God and that Christ died for their sins too. That is what a true Christian nation is. So when we have people like Elon Musk or Charlie Kirk or Nick Fuentes or many others, talking about the great replacement theory, how white people are being replaced in this country, that is not Christian rhetoric. That is anti-Christ rhetoric. Again, I will repeat, that is anti-Christ rhetoric. Now, from a non-political perspective, or maybe a little bit of a political perspective, what would a Christian nation be like? A Christian nation would be first of all, let's just say if everybody in America were true Christians. Obviously, we are all terrible Christians. Most of us are just terrible Christians because zero of us will ever amount to who Christ was. But let's just say we were a true Christian nation and everybody in this nation was actually trying to be a Christian. There would be, first of all, no homelessness. There would be no homelessness, no poverty. A Christian nation would have no homelessness and no poverty because a Christian nation would build houses for the homeless. A Christian nation would house those in poverty. A Christian nation would prioritize housing all those in poverty, all those who are homeless. So at the end of the day, a true Christian nation would have taken care of its homelessness, would have taken care of its poor, would have taken care of its underclass, both on the government level and on the people level, especially. The people caring for the poor, and on the government level, using, housing the poor people, building houses for the poor people, at the end of the day. So a true Christian nation, A, would not have homelessness or poverty. A true Christian nation, B, would welcome immigrants and migrants in recognizing that we are all children of God who Christ died for, including Muslims including Muslims, Haitians, Mexican immigrants, Latino immigrants, Chinese immigrants, whatever. A true Christian nation welcomes immigrants. A true Christian nation would not have any homelessness. Or a true Christian nation. And furthermore, I'm going to get deeper. This is completely contradicting the Christian nationalist right-wing Republican ideology, which, in my opinion, is anti-Christ. It's anti-Christ. A true Christian nation will have universal health care. A true Christian nation will have universal health care. A true Christian nation will take care of its sick. In the name of God, a true Christian nation will take care of its sick, whether they're struggling with cancer or diabetes or, just different illnesses or diseases, whatever. A true Christian nation would take care of all its ill, all its sick. And you're going to look at this and you're going to say, oh man, wait a minute, that's socialism. No, that's not so. Well, you can call it socialism, but a true Christian nation will take care of its sick, will take care of its poor, will take care of its hurting. You can call it socialism or not, but I'm going to call it Christian. That's what I'm going to call it. So, a true Christian nation would welcome immigrants. A true Christian nation would have no poverty, no homelessness, and a true Christian nation would take care of its poor and sick and have universal health care. A true Christian nation, going back to Mondami's proposal, a true Christian nation would have universal child care. For babies born out of wedlock, for babies who are orphans, for children who are orphans, for children who are born, going into, foster care or whatever, all kinds of things. A true Christian nation would take care of its post-born children. Yes, preborn. We're going to get to that too. A true Christian nation would take care of its post-born children. So a true Christian nation would have Mondami's proposal of universal child care, something that pro-lifers should be celebrating, should be celebrating. We should want Mondami to succeed in universal childcare because that takes care of post-born children. So, a true Christian nation will welcome immigrants and migrants, will take care of their homeless and those in poverty, will have universal health care and take care of their sick and ill, and will take care of the post-born children who have no home. A true Christian nation will do all these things. Fifth thing, and this is one that's going to piss liberals off. A true Christian nation will take care of its unborn. Yes, I'm speaking to you liberals because we don't agree on this. A true Christian nation will recognize life in the womb and life outside of the womb. Okay? That's the truth. It's the truth. You may not want to hear it, but it's the truth. A true Christian nation is a truly pro-life nation. A true Christian nation will take care of its unborn, will help the woman, but also protect and value the life of the unborn child. That is one thing that a true Christian nation will do. A true Christian nation that is truly pro-life will take care of the postborn, as we've already discussed, and will take care of the unborn. All right, so that is a key thing, a key factor to a true Christian nation. Also, a true Christian nation, and this one's going to be outside of politics. A true Christian nation will have people. We're not even talking. We're going outside of politics right now. A true Christian nation will have people that care about each other. That care about each other. They'll look out for each other. They'll look out for their homeless neighbor or their immigrant neighbor or their LGBT neighbor. That will love people. A true Christian nation full of true Christians will be a nation that loves people. A nation that loves each other. A nation that does not fear each other. And a nation that will look out for people who are, poor, homeless, or whatever, immigrant, migrant, LGBT, Muslim. The parable of the Good Samaritan? The parable that Christ told of the Good Samaritan about how the first two passed by him because they weren't part of their religion, passed by the struggling guy on the streets because they weren't part of their religion. Whereas the Samaritan, who was a totally different religion, came and actually helped and cared for that person. That's what a true Christian nation would do. We don't have to agree, but we have to love and care for people unconditionally. And that is what a true Christian nation will do. If we are a nation full of true Christians, that is what we will do. Right-wing, Christian nationalist, Republican, conservative movement, ideology is not Christian. It's not Christian. A true Christian nation will do everything that I said. A true Christian nation will do, the things that I have spoken about. And that is what a true Christian nation is. And once again, going back to the very beginning of my video, at the end of the day, we were not founded as a Christian nation. We are a Christian faith majority nation. And the reality of the matter is in the church that most Christians aren't actual. And I'm going to be honest with you. I struggle with this too. I'm dead serious. I struggle with this too. So I'm condemning myself here, but I'm also speaking the truth. Most Christians don't actually live their faith. That's just the reality. That's just the truth. They'll go to church. They'll sing hymns. They'll vote Republican. And they'll go and, sing at Charlie Kirk's service or whatever, sing praise songs there, praise to the Lord and all that stuff and all that, talk about, scream about Christian nationalism at America Fest. And then they don't actually live their faith or live how Christ asked them to live, and caring for the poor, the meek, the humble, the sick, all that stuff. Most Christians don't actually do that. We might be a Christian majority nation, but most Christians, a very, very scarce few of them, actually live their faith. And unfortunately, I'm condemning myself too because I struggle with that a lot. I try sometimes. I try. I know I could do better. I know I could do better personally. But either way, that is what a Christian nation would look like. That is what a true Christian nation would look like. And either way, we were not founded as a Christian nation. We were founded as a nation, of religious freedom, which is the freedom to practice any religion that we want. Being a Christian majority nation, how much different would it be if they actually lived out their faith as Christ taught? Caring for the poor, the marginalized, the sick, the immigrant, the LGBT, etc., etc., etc. Imagine if the majority of Christians in this nation actually lived out that faith that Christ set out for them, instead of just thinking that it's all about going and voting Republican and singing at America Fest or listening to Nicki Minaj or Erica Kirk. I don't even know. But anyways, these are my thoughts. At the end of the day, I'm going to be continuing to stand up for, people of different faiths in this country. I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to stand up for the likes of Vivek Ramaswamy, even though I have had serious, the dignity of likes of Vivek Ramaswamy, who is Hindu, Ben Shapiro, who is, Jewish. I'm going to continue to stand up for even the likes of Ilhan Omar, who is, a Somali Muslim. I'm going to continue to stand up for people who are different than me, who believe different than me. And I'm doing that because I believe that, they have the right to be here. They came, if they're on protective status, they have the right to be here. And a Christian nation will allow them to stay. I'm going to close off by reading one thing that I wrote. I'm going to close off by reading one thing that I wrote about this. It's no secret that I'm extremely liberal on the immigration issue, but I also just figured out where I personally draw the line. And I'm going to kind of explain this as I read this. I'm okay with having refugees here and people on protective status. I'm okay with them having their own culture and their own language. Yeah, I mean that. I'm okay with them having their own culture and their own language and people who are refugees here on protective status. My Christianity calls me to support refugees unconditionally. That's it. Period. My Christianity calls me to support refugees, even if they don't share the Christian faith. Most Christians in this nation don't practice the Christian faith anyway, so why should that matter to people? Why should that matter to people? Where I personally draw the line is here. When they try to take over our Christian faith and culture, for those of us who hold the Christian faith, we must not allow people who are foreign to seize that from us. Bear in mind, I'm only speaking in theory because as of today, I have yet to see any single example of that happening. Only fear-mongering, all coming from the hard right wing. Fear-mongering of Muslims, fear-mongering of Somalians, fear-mongering of, even Hindus from Nick Fuentes or Vivek or whatever, Ben Shapiro or whatever. Only fear-mongering coming from the hard right wing. This post comes in the wake of all the Somali controversy happening. And I might actually do a separate video on the Somali controversy, by the way, because I know that's getting a lot of traction. My Christianity calls me to stand with our refugees, even though it also calls me to say, my Christianity calls me to stand with our refugees, but not to allow their religion or way of life to take over ours. And that's where I stand. So we don't want their religion or way of life to take over, our beliefs, but at the same time, we need to stand with them. We need to protect them and stand up for them and stand with them, Somebody wrote, regardless of what they say, Islam isn't taking over the U.S. at all. That's correct. That's all fear-mongering by the American right. That's also correct. Anyone can speak any language they want or to learn any language they want to. English is just the universal language of commerce. That's correct. English is just the universal language of commerce established by the world standards. And I just write back, Islam is not taking over the U.S. and never seen a shred of evidence to back the right's fear-mongering about that either. So basically, summing up, case in point, this is why we're not a Christian nation, and this is why, the two reasons we're not a Christian nation. Understand that, the majority of people aren't actually practicing their faith, and they should be, but also explaining what it actually is. And if you guys have any thoughts, comments, disagreements, or whatever, I appreciate your feedback. Thank you for watching this video. This is Javier here, tuning out.